Welcome back. All right, to recap the first 5 Halloween movies. Halloween 1, fantastic. One of the best horror movies ever made. 2, an okay sequel with really good performances by Donald Pleasance, Jamie Lee Curtis, and the guy who plays Michael Myers. Not as interesting as the first one, nor memorable, but it did have a few hilarious death scenes, so it's just okay. Not good, not bad. Season of the Witch, terrible. One of the worst Halloween sequels ever. Halloween 4, really underrated. Don't know why it's hated as much. Jamie Lloyd is a perfect replacement for Laurie Strode. It has a great twist at the end, and the acting's really good in it. Halloween 5, it's okay. Kind of like the second Halloween movie, it's just okay. So, with this in mind, this video is going to be Halloween's 6th through the second Rob Zombie remake in 2009. So, let's waste no time. Let's dive into Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers. Much like Season of the Witch, this one has an interesting backstory. I'm starting to see the pattern here with every third movie in the Halloween series. I'll get to why later. So, this one apparently was supposed to be a more psychological thriller that scared the living crap out of one of the producers. That they greenlit it, and the original script, Donald Pleasance signed onto it. But yeah, it got ordered to be rewritten by the studio and the producers. And also, it was not well received by test audiences. So they had to reshoot it. And when they were reshooting, Donald Pleasance died. This is the last film of Donald Pleasance as Dr. Loomis. Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers. This is also the debut of Paul Rudd. Yes, I Love You Man, Ant-Man, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Civil War. Ant-Man, Paul Rudd, is in a Halloween movie. Just think about that. And I'll get down the line about a crazy, person such as Paul Rudd. Paul Rudd's not crazy, but a crazy, why are you in this movie actor in a Halloween franchise? But, oh yeah, also, Danielle Harris isn't in this movie. I'll just get into the story so I can vent. This is basically following Tommy Doyle, played by Paul Rudd, realizes that Jamie Lloyd is still alive, so that way Michael Myers is still alive. And it's the same plot of every Halloween movie. I know I shouldn't be as mad at this one, but I am, because a lot of it is lazy. And I'm not saying oh, there's plot holes, because those don't exist. Those are nitpicks. But it's just so poorly written, and it's so obvious that a studio hacked this film to be gory for the sake of being gory. And yes, I know that the other Halloween movies have blood. And I know a lot of my favorite horror movies have a lot of blood. The Evil Dead trilogy, not the remake, are some of my favorite horror movies. Sinister, pretty bloody. American Psycho, really bloody. But this is bloody to be sake of being bloody, so that way they can have the R rating. It has some nudity in it, kind of like the other ones, but this one, it just feels out of place. So, before I talk about what I really hate about this movie, I want to talk about what I like, even though this is a really, really obvious that it's his first performance. Paul Rudd is still charming and hasn't aged a day. That's it. Donald Pleasance just doesn't look like he wants to be here. And it's obvious that this film has ran out of steam. They killed Jamie Lloyd within the first few minutes of her being on screen. Why? I don't know. It would have been more interesting to see Jamie Lloyd interact with Tommy Doyle and the people living in the Strode house and Dr. Loomis again. That would have been an interesting concept. But no, we have to kill one of the main characters because we couldn't get Danielle Harris back as Jamie Lloyd. It's a confusing mess. And it's basically saying Michael was controlled from the day he was born to be evil because of some cult. But guess what? All the cult people die because it's Michael Myers. He's pure evil. Don't you get it? And I know there's a producer's cut out somewhere where it explains a lot of the problems with this movie, especially why for most of it. But I don't care. This movie was so awful that I don't care that there's a superior cut to this movie. Yes, I know I have said on my Twitter that the extended cut of BVS is better than the theatrical cut. But that added things that made sense to the plot. Here, I don't know what it is. I don't care because this is one of the absolute worst movies I've ever seen. I don't want to watch this again. I'd rather watch Halloween 1, 2, 4, and 5 again and say that Jamie Lloyd just disappeared. I don't know how else to explain why this movie's bad. It's not a Halloween movie. It's just some serial killer movie that happened to have Michael Myers in it. I'm done. I'm done ranting about this. I'm done talking about it. Let's just move on. Get Jamie Lee Curtis back. Halloween H2O, 20 years later. It should just be called Halloween 20 years later, but whatever. So, as the title says, it's 20 years later. Laurie Strode is now living under another name because she faked her own death, is now in California to hide from Michael. She has a 17-year-old son. So Jamie Lloyd doesn't exist anymore. And Michael comes back and kills her, finds her in California and tries to kill her. This was actually I have to say the best sequel because it was well written. It had some kind of scary moments, even though a lot of it was jump scares. The acting was great. It's great seeing Jamie Lee Curtis again as Laurie Strode. Easily the best part of the movie. And that cast is actually really great in this movie. Michelle Williams, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Josh Hartnett, one of the neo-Nazis from Sons of Anarchy season 2, the guy who owns the cigar shop for those who don't know, LL Cool J, not as distracting as Paul Rudd, but he does a good job in this movie. I think that was Jamie Kennedy in the beginning, and of course, I probably said this already, but Joseph Gordon-Levitt, my man, Joseph Gordon-Levitt. No, like, it was just a really good movie. It was well made. It had a lot of thought and put into it, so yeah. Yeah, nothing else to say. It's just a good movie. All right, let's finish up the Laurie Strode and the original movies with Halloween Resurrection. The movie stars Tyra Banks and Busta Rhymes. Laurie Strode dies within the first few minutes. And also Busta Rhymes takes a cord and, electrocutes Michael in the balls. And before that, he says, "Trick or treat, mother effer." This movie was stupid. I just don't have any words. This was just stupid. All right, let's get in to the Rob Zombie remake of Halloween. At first, I was going to try to judge it as a film on its own because I need to separate the first Halloween from this remake, and I didn't. I couldn't. And that's one of the problems because it takes a lot of memorable scenes from the first movie and just not remakes it, but remakes it shot for shot. This movie is, even as on its own, even as a remake, it's a horrible film. It makes you feel dirty in parts because Rob Zombie doesn't know how to write anything. It's just senseless nudity and gore and violence and sexual references and profanity. Something that the original Halloween was not, which is more tame. And you know what? It's not as scary as some of the stuff that has came out today, but still pretty damn creepy compared to this. The only good part is Malcolm McDowell as Loomis, which is a really good choice. But he can't save the film. Because we have to figure out why Michael's that way, not just because he's pure evil, but why he's pure evil. It's because his dad was abusive, mom was a stripper, sister was a bully, and Lori was a baby. And he was bullied by the kid from Spy Kids. And he carried a dead cat in his backpack. Why can't we just have this guy be the embodiment of evil? Why does it have to be so complicated? I'm done with this movie. Let's just get the second one done so I can be done with this series. I can't with these movies anymore. And that's it for the Rob Zombie movies. All done. All done with all these Halloween movies until the new one in a few days. So, let's just get this over with. Let's talk about Halloween 2 and something I forgot to address in the first Rob Zombie Halloween is that the scenes with Loomis and young Michael are pretty good. And again, Malcolm McDowell is the best part of that movie. Now, the sequel, I can't really get too mad at this one because it's about the same quality as the first Rob Zombie movie. And but it's also different. Whereas you had one likable character in Loomis and the sheriff and some of the other town folks that are not acting like Rob Zombie stereotypes for these movies. They're fantastic. In Halloween 2, the only likable character in it is Annie and Sheriff Bracken. The other parts of the film, just awful. They make Loomis this big jerk who doesn't care about anything and really no repercussions other than he's dead, which he even shouldn't have been in the movie in the first place. They make Laurie Strode just a terrible character, even worse, untestable at this point because not only is she just a stereotype of Rob Zombie's characters in the first one, she's now just a whiny person, and it's kind of sad to see. And the movie's just really unpleasant again. There's just a lot of nudity just to have it, a lot of blood just to have blood, and it's really, again, dude bro-y. It's same thing with the first one. I can't get mad at these two because they're basically the same film. Except whereas Halloween 1 had some ambition, I feel like, this one doesn't. The only ambition it has is a white horse. And Michael Myers' mom coming back. And the fact that Laurie Strode's name is Angel Myers, which I honestly always thought it was Laurie Myers, so I'm just going to keep it at that because literally everything else in the franchise is not even canon except for maybe the first film now, apparently. But, no. This movie is just about as awful as the first one, and I want to give you, in ranking order, what I feel like the Halloween films have been so far, from the worst to the best. So, number 10, I have Halloween 6. I still feel like that's the worst one, even though I feel like the Rob Zombie Halloween movies are about as poorly written as them. I feel like it just made me angry watching it and confused in the first minute. And number 9 and number 8, these can change any day depending on how I feel, but the Rob Zombie Halloween movies, yes, I feel like they are that bad. It is something that is very unpleasant, and I don't feel like I'll ever watch again unless someone forces me to, but that's another story. Number 7, Halloween 3, just doesn't count, so, and it still pisses me off like the past 3 movies, so. Number 6, Halloween Resurrection, it's just dumb, and it's kind of boring. Number 5, unironically, Halloween 5. Again, it's okay, not as good as Halloween 4, but still. Number 4, Halloween 2, the original Halloween 2, the one that is the best one, and you should really watch over the Rob Zombie ones, but whatever. And still kind of boring. Number 3, Halloween 4. Again, I don't get the hate behind this movie. This movie is really well made, and I really like the characters in it. Number 2, Halloween 20 years later. Yeah, it comes close to being like the first movie again, and it's actually great to see Jamie Lee Curtis, have somewhat of a life and then just have it ruined by Michael again. It's very fitting. And number 1, obviously, the original. It's the original. So next time, let's go to Crystal Lake. See you then.